All right, let's dive into these ancient Judean texts, huh? Kings, conquests, covenants sounds like a recipe for some serious drama. You've sent over these excerpts from 2 Chronicles 13 and 15 about Kings Abijah and Asa, and let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about a period of intense turmoil, really a pivotal moment in Judah's history. And these chapters throw us right into the thick of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're picking up right after Rehoboam's reign, which, and I think we can all agree on this, was a bit of a mess. So how does that chaos, that instability, how does that spill over into Abijah's time as king?
Well, the most immediate challenge Abijah faces is actually, it's external. It's Jeroboam.
Okay, Jeroboam, king of the northern kingdom, right?
All right.
The one who basically broke away from Judah.
That's the one. And let me tell you, their relationship, not exactly friendly. They're locked in a full-blown civil war.
And when I say civil war, I mean a clash of truly epic proportions. We're talking armies of hundreds of thousands. I mean, did they just round up every able-bodied man in the kingdom?
It really makes you appreciate the kind of manpower these kingdoms could actually, mobilize, even during those really unstable times. But yeah, we're talking 400,000 men under Abijah versus, get this, 800,000 under Jeroboam.
800,000. It's mind-boggling.
It's really something. And it's not just a bunch of guys with, swords and shields either. I mean, there's strategy involved. Like the text mentions Jeroboam setting an ambush for Abijah's forces.
Oh, wow. So they're getting attacked from both sides. Talk about a tough spot to be in.
Talk about a tough spot. Exactly. But, and this is important, before that battle even begins, Abijah, he does something really fascinating. He delivers this really powerful speech to his troops.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part. It's like a combination of a history lesson and a pep talk all rolled into one.
Exactly. It's like, remember that covenant God made with our ancestor, King David? Well, Jeroboam. Yeah, he's basically spitting in the face of that sacred promise. We're the righteous ones here. We're fighting for our God, for our kingdom, for our very survival. And it's powerful stuff.
So he's leveraging their faith as a way to unify his ranks and demoralize the enemy.
Precisely. And it works too, because despite being totally outnumbered, Abijah pulls off this decisive victory.
That's the crazy thing. The text says God gives him the win.
It's presented as divine intervention, right? And whether you take that literally or see it as like a reflection of the morale boost from his speech, I mean, either way, it's a powerful element of the narrative.
And the aftermath of this battle, it's brutal. I mean, we're talking massive casualties here.
Absolutely devastating. The text says 500,000 Israelite soldiers were killed. 500,000. That's not just a number.
Yeah.
Those were real people.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that kind of loss,
You can't even imagine. And for Abijah, I mean, this victory, it really sets the tone for his reign. Short, but impactful.
It really does. But we'll delve into that and his son Asa's fascinating story another time.
It's almost like you can feel this collective sigh of relief, across the kingdom as Asa takes over.
Because things had been so shaky with his father Abijah having to fight off, everyone, really.
Yeah, exactly. Abijah really had his hands full, with that whole massive conflict with Israel. But Asa, he gets to walk into a kingdom that's, well, at least for now, it's at peace. It's a chance to, to regroup, to focus on internal matters.
Okay, so less about fending off enemies and more about strengthening the kingdom from within.
Exactly. And a big part of that, a really big part, is religious reformation.
Which is interesting because wasn't it Abijah who gave that whole rousing speech to his troops about God's covenant with King David? So it sounds like Asa is taking those ideas, those religious ideas, and he's running with them.
Oh, absolutely. He's building on that legacy for sure, but in a different way. Remember those Deuteronomic reforms we talked about a while back?
Refresh my memory on those. Those were all about.
It was this big push to really solidify the Israelites' commitment to Yahweh, to say he's the one true God and we're sticking with him.
Right. And to get rid of all those other influences, all those other gods and idols and stuff.
Exactly. It meant tearing down altars to those other gods, smashing those sacred pillars, getting rid of those Asherah poles, which, by the way, those were no joke. They were these wooden symbols thought to, represent this Canaanite goddess.
So they weren't messing around. And Asa, he really goes all in on this, doesn't he? The text makes it very clear that he was not afraid to make some big changes.
Not afraid at all. I mean, he's not just going through the motions here either. He's commanding the people, actively telling them, you need to seek out Yahweh. You need to follow the law.
It's like he's saying this isn't just about outward appearances. We're going to live this.
Exactly. And you know what? It works. At least for a while, things are pretty peaceful in Judah.
And they attribute that peace, that stability, directly to Asa's, his piety, his religious devotion.
That's how it's presented, yeah. And he doesn't just, rest on his laurels, He uses that time to strengthen Judah's defenses. He builds fortified cities. And get this, his army, it grows to 300,000 men just from Judah.
300,000. Wow. Okay, was that a lot for the time?
Oh, yeah. That was a huge force, really, especially back then. And then you add in another 280,000 from the tribe of Benjamin, and you're talking about a serious show of force.
So he's not just hoping for the best, he's putting in the work.
Oh, absolutely. And he even says, he says, the land is still ours because we have sought the Lord our God. So he definitely sees a connection, between their religious devotion and how well things are going for them.
He's putting his faith into action, but it seems like things are about to get a little dicey for Asa.
You think?
Because last time I checked, a 1,000,000-man army led by someone called Zerah the Ethiopian, that's not exactly a friendly social call, is it? So we've got King Asa, right? He's at the top of his game. Kingdom's doing well. He's got this massive army. He's deeply devoted to his faith. And then, bam, a 1,000,000-man army shows up, led by, of all names, Zerah the Ethiopian. 1,000,000 men. That's not even a war. That's just rude.
It's a whole different level of threat, and it really does put Asa to the test. His leadership, how well he's prepared, his military, but especially his faith. This is someone who's really put a lot of stock into believing that staying true to God brings security, brings prosperity, and now here's this massive challenge that would shake anyone's face.
And we're talking about chariots, too. Those things were the tanks of the ancient world, weren't they? 300 chariots. How do you even strategize against that? So what does Asa do?
He prays. He prays, and it's not a quick, help me out here, God, kind of prayer. It's this very raw, very honest plea where he acknowledges just how overwhelming this threat is, and he puts their fate totally in God's hands. He even says, Lord, it is nothing for you to help, whether with many or with those who have no power. I mean, he's basically saying we've got nothing.
Total humility, right. Our only hope is you.
No.
Powerful stuff.
It really is. He could have easily, relied on his army or tried to strategize, but instead he chooses just total reliance on God. And the text doesn't treat this as weakness either, but as the hallmark of a righteous king. It's pretty remarkable.
So what happens? Angels descend from the heavens. Does the earth split open and swallow up the Ethiopians?
Well, no, not exactly. What happens is God gives Asa a win, a big one. The Ethiopian army is completely, utterly routed. The text describes it as a massacre. So many Ethiopians died they couldn't even recover.
Okay, well, that's another thing that's hard to wrap your head around. But talk about a win for Asa, and for someone whose reign has been all about how piety leads to success. I mean, that's a pretty convincing argument right there.
It's a huge validation, definitely. It's proof, as far as anyone's concerned, that God is on Asa's side, protecting Judah, making sure it prospers. Of course, on the other hand, it also kind of makes you think about the cost of those kinds of victories, even when they're framed as divine intervention.
Yeah, there's a heavy side to it for sure when you think about it. But before things get too serious, right after this victory, this prophet, Azariah, he shows up. What's the message there? Is God sending Asa a gift basket for being such a good follower?
Laughs lightly? Not exactly. No, Azariah brings a message, but it's more of a reminder that this big win, it's not a blank check. Staying connected to God, it takes work, right? It's a conscious choice. You have to seek God out and follow his laws.
Like a spiritual tune-up. Hey, I'm here for you, but don't get cocky.
Exactly. And to drive the point home, Azariah reminds Asa about those times when the Israelites strayed from God, all the chaos, the suffering. It's basically a warning. Remember what happened. Let's not do that again.
So how does Asa take that? He doesn't get all defensive, like, hey, I just took down a 1,000,000-man army. Give me a break.
Not at all. He really takes it to heart. In fact, he kicks off this huge public renewal of their covenant with God. Sacrifices, oaths, music, the whole deal. It's really a powerful image showing just how committed he is to keeping Judah on the right track.
It's amazing how important this idea of a covenant was to, their whole worldview. It wasn't just a deal. It was the basis of everything, their relationship with God, how well their nation did.
Totally. And, Asa's reign, it wasn't perfect. The text even says he didn't get rid of all the local shrines where people were worshiping. But he really does highlight just how powerful faith was and how important that covenant with God was.
It does make you wonder what other stories about faith and about power, even about politics, are hidden in the book of Chronicles. What choices did other kings make when they faced these impossible situations? What happened to Judah because of them? Those are things to think about as we keep on exploring these incredible books, and hopefully we'll get some answers in our next deep dive.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.